Along the Via Appia, the Appian Way, have marched the armies of almost every great power in the history of man. On these stones have tramped pilgrims and travelers from the ends of the earth. For you see, like all roads, the Appian Way leads to Rome. Of all cities, this is the first and the last, for it is the one that men call eternal. Patriots anywhere point to a national past with pride. In this city, the people do not have to point, for their proud past is ever above them. From this city came a people destined to rule the world by their vitality, the strength of their arms, and their sense of justice. The letters SPQR on this bus are the very same that marked the banners the Roman conquerors carried to the very rim of their vast and ever-expanding empire. Beneath a pagan Rome, the first Christians worshipped in secret. For their faith, they risked torture, martyrdom, and death, until at last the very city above them acknowledged that faith as one of the greatest philosophies the world has ever known. Here are a dozen Romes, one built upon the ruins of another, yet even in death, magnificent. Around them and woven into them is the Rome of today, modern, vigorous, and growing, lively capital of a nation that is only 80 years old. For with the fall of the Roman Empire, the political unity of this boot-shaped piece of Europe gave way to a mass of city-states, each with its own constitution. It wasn't until 13 centuries later that Garibaldi and the Risorgimento welded what was left of the pattern into the country called Italy. Italy, cool in the north, hot in the south. Her northern limits the great wall of mountain where the Alps slope down to the River Po. At the mouth of its valley, marshland and a strange, quiet wilderness. Along its length, rich provinces, fine cities like Verona, Mantua, and Milan. Southward across the Apennines, the sun grows hotter and the roads more dusty, twisting through the vineyards and the hill villages of Umbria and Tuscany. Beyond Rome, the highways thread the Alban hills to Latina and Terracina, winding past Cassino, newly risen from its wartime ruins. Across the Garigliano and into Campania, with its flower-lined coast and sunlit bay of Naples. Past Vesuvius and over the hills that look down upon the wind-blown plain of Paestum. With every mile, the sun climbing higher, to the very toe of the boot and over the straits where beneath snow-capped Etna, even the lizards seek shade. And what are they like, the people of this land of contrast? Burnt by the sun and filled with good-humored vitality, strong in faith and mellowed by tradition, quick to smile and often of mercurial wit, engineers, farmers, builders, and craftsmen. And young and old, each a firm believer in his own right of way, blessed with an individualism as deep-rooted as the past which fostered it. It was in this city, Florence, in the Middle Ages, that this Italian freedom of expression was given full rein by the Renaissance, bringing to the world beauty and riches beyond compare. Things of the past, yet by their vitality, so much a part of the present, and so much responsible for the present. For it was here in these cities that the same Renaissance laid down the basic rules of science. By dropping weights from the height of Pisa's Leaning Tower, Galileo made the first advances toward modern technology by his studies into gravity. Modern technology. The skill and knowledge required to shape materials and make them do one's bidding. And no better applied than here in Italy. Ships and ships' engines, motor cars, machine tools. This is the home of a mechanical skill and experience in engineering that is the envy of many. Yet this is a reputation won with few natural resources. For the fuel to feed its hungry furnaces and coke ovens, Italian industry calls for maximum effort on the part of the coal miners of Tuscany and Sardinia. Calls, too, for full development and exploitation of the oil and natural gas found beneath the soil of Cortomaggiore, products pumped direct from the wells to the great industrial centers that they serve. White clouds around the towers of Larderello, hissing jets of steam from the natural reservoirs beneath. These things symbolize Italy's struggle to harness all for power. The power to produce and keep producing. The power to provide a livelihood for the millions in her factories. Yet in spite of these problems, production climbs steadily. Factories modern as a fluid flywheel, running as smoothly as gears in a bath of oil. This is the humming, busy North. To Italian eyes, a fine motor car is a thing of beauty and a joy forever. And Italian machines are built that way. This skill and experience in things mechanical has resulted in the most striking phenomenon of post-war Italy. A machine ingeniously developed from what was once the starter motor of an aeroplane. A machine destined to revolutionize life for those with small incomes. The motor scooter. This is the small man's Italy of today, one on two wheels. Work or pleasure, whatever the aim, one finds new life when one finds mobility. And while the scooter brings change into the lives of Italians, Italian cars, by their speed, elegance, and general excellence, win praise and high sales on the markets of the world. Modern technology, skill and experience. Whether the result be a train or a typewriter, in Italy these things point to a promising, gleaming future. Capital of the North is the city of Milan with its great cathedral, Italy's center of industry and commerce, home of businessmen and thousands of factory workers. Home, too, of La Scala, the most celebrated opera house in the world. Proof that even those who deal in the most material can have the highest possible tastes. Yes, an Italian, however busy, can always find time for music. What Milan is to the north, Naples is to the south. Naples, with its busy harbor and its magnificent bay, its glimpses of the fine new ships of the Italian mercantile marine. Tourist Naples, a facade of gleaming hotels and fashionable waterside restaurants. And what would Naples be without music? But even here, the presence of the loungers, the listless, and the souvenir sellers reveals that behind the facade is a Naples that knows only too well the harder facts of life. Poverty and unemployment, the age-old cancers of the South. Jobless there are elsewhere too in Italy, but here the problem is at its worst. Down at the docks, the unlucky watch with envy the efforts of the more fortunate. People who can work as hard as any in the world, but with little or nothing to work on. Small wonder that many consider emigration, think like their fathers did of leaving for America. A mule and ox economy. This has been the pattern of centuries in the South. Too little land, too many people, too few resources. Villages, waterless, insanitary, and tumble down, where standards are as low as they can be. Immense stretches of stony, untilled land, arid land, where too often the priceless topsoil has gone with the wind of centuries. In Apulia, Calabria, Sicily, and Sardinia. Democratic, as befits their nature, Italians seek solutions politically, and 9 out of 10 use their vote. In Italy, politics are the chief national activity, and the game is played to the limit. Though extremes seem to invite extremes, yet since the war there has been a continued preference for middle-of-the-road coalitions. But however they cast their votes, the plea is always for a government to get things done. Since the war, problems old and new have been tackled with fresh impetus. A remote farmhouse in Sardinia, still using the mule power of centuries, gets its first electric light. Landless peasants in Calabria hear that by reform laws they will henceforth own the fields they work. Tractors in Apulia plowing deep through the stones to turn up the good soil beneath. Such are the signs that Italy has gone far towards solving the problems of her southern regions. Although it was martial aid that gave the first spur to post-war recovery, so much has been achieved by the sheer muscle and sweat of the Italians themselves. With or without machines, it was they who broke the rocks, carted the stones, leveled the ground, and laid the cement, changing the face of whole provinces. It was they who replaced hundreds of rutted lanes and laid down new highways, carving out of the mountainsides wide, sweeping roads where only tracks had existed before. Spraying the swamps and marshlands of Sardinia and Paestum, sweeping away the malarial mosquitoes once and for all. Digging and leveling on the dry, tired hillsides, shaping the terraces to hold the tiny seedlings which will become the green slopes of tomorrow. Building hundreds and thousands of new houses and farms to replace the hovels of the past. Constructing from local quarries the pipes and irrigation ducts to carry water from the new dams rising in the hills, to make thousands of acres of Italy productive for the first time. Yes, in Italy, the last 10 years have been years of hard work, but there is much to show for it. Though problems of land and people still remain, given peace, the way ahead looks good. Given peace. Paradoxically, peace is a cause worth fighting for. His country so recently devastated, an Italian requires no explanation as to the true meaning of war. And yet today the reborn Italian services are made up of men resolute and of high morale. In Navy, Army, and Air Force, each is well trained and skilled to his trade. And backing the Italian serving man is all his country's classic experience in things mechanical. Seaman, pilot, hardy Alpini or tough Bersaglieri, each realizes that only by giving full support to Italy's allies in the Atlantic Alliance can the whole community of nations secure any real guarantee of lasting peace. As one who has suffered from war as much as most, the Italian soldier knows only too well that peace is well worth struggling for. But though ready in plane, ship, or tank, each hopes and prays that the need for their use may never arise. For like the rest of us, each is a lover of more peaceful things. A people burnt by the sun and filled with good-humored vitality, quick to smile and often of mercurial wit, strong in faith and mellowed by tradition. Engineers, farmers, builders, and craftsmen, and young or old, each a firm believer in his own right of way, blessed with an individualism as deep-rooted as the past which fostered it. Each year in historic Siena is held the horse race known as the Palio. And it is here that the Italian love of tradition, color, and excitement finds full expression. Vigor and a zest for life, enthusiasm and good-humored vitality. These are the Italians.